The atmosphere inside the throne room of Tlax Prime was suffocating. The once great King Varen, feared across the galaxy for his ruthless rule, now lay propped up on an ornate dais, his body frail and wasting away. The bioluminescent glow of the crystalline walls seemed dimmer, as if the very palace mourned its dying ruler. Lieutenant Marcus Wells, a human soldier famed for his valor in intergalactic skirmishes, stood before the king, his posture rigid. He had been summoned without explanation, his transport escorted directly to the royal court. The king's crimson eyes, once fiery with power, now flickered weakly as he regarded Marcus. "Lieutenant Wells," Varen rasped, his voice hoarse yet commanding, "you have proven your courage, your honor. You saved my life in battle, despite being my enemy." Marcus's jaw tightened. The moment was surreal. The tyrant whose forces he had fought was now offering him praise. "You risked everything to save an old man," Varen continued, coughing harshly. "That act deserves a reward." "I didn't do it for a reward," Marcus said, his tone measured. "I did it because no one deserves to die like that." The king's lips curved into a faint wry smile. "A noble sentiment, and one that brings me to my final request." He motioned weakly to a shadowed corner of the room. From the darkness emerged Queen Syra, her figure draped in the flowing silks of Tlaxian royalty. Her appearance was striking but unconventional by both human and Tlaxian standards. Her skin was pale and unevenly textured, her features sharp and angular. Rumors of her ugliness had spread across the galaxy, painting her as a grotesque figure, a symbol of Varen's iron-fisted rule. "I ask you," Varen said, his voice faltering, "to marry my wife." Marcus froze, his mind reeling. He stared at Syra, who held her head high despite the weight of the room's stairs. The courtiers lining the chamber whispered among themselves, their disbelief palpable. "Your Majesty," Marcus began, his voice low, "I'm not sure I understand." Varen coughed again, his voice growing weaker. "Syra, she has been my strength, my shadow. But when I am gone, she will be alone in a court that despises her. A human soldier, a hero, she needs your protection, and my people need your example." The silence was deafening. Marcus looked at Syra, searching her expression for a hint of what she felt. Her eyes met his, steady and unreadable. The king's breathing grew ragged. Promise me you will honor this." Marcus's instincts screamed at him to refuse, but something in Varen's desperation, in Syra's silent dignity, held him back. Finally, he nodded. "I promise." Varen exhaled a sigh of relief, his head falling back onto the pillows. "Then, my people may yet have hope." The Galactic Council erupted in chaos the moment the news of Varen's deathbed request reached its chambers. The Council, an assembly of representatives from countless species, prided itself on maintaining balance and decorum. But this, a human soldier marrying the wife of a fallen tyrant? It was unheard of. In the Grand Chamber, holographic projections of the councillors flickered as heated debates raged. Some saw the union as a brilliant political maneuver, a way to stabilize the volatile Tlaxian regime. Others deemed it a disgrace, an affront to both human and alien traditions. "This is an insult to the Galactic Council," bellowed Councillor Thraxus, a reptilian figure whose scales glistened under the chamber's lights. "The human soldier's actions risk setting a dangerous precedent." Councillor Vorel, a Matari with shimmering blue skin, raised a hand for calm. "We must not dismiss this outright. Lieutenant Wells's reputation for honor is unmatched. If anyone can guide Tlax into a new era, it is him." Meanwhile, Marcus stood on the central platform, a holographic spotlight illuminating him. Queen Syra stood beside him, her posture regal despite the palpable tension. "Lieutenant Wells," Council President Raneth addressed him directly, "this is no small matter. Do you fully understand the consequences of this arrangement?" Marcus straightened. "I understand the weight of this decision, but I made a promise. King Varen's deathbed request wasn't just about politics, it was about peace. If my actions can help bring stability to Tlax, I'll see it through." The council murmured, their skepticism softened by his conviction. President Raneth turned to Syra. "And you, Queen Syra, what do you say to this union?" Syra's voice was clear and steady, cutting through the noise. "I will honor my late husband's wish. But more than that, I believe this union is a chance for my people to see beyond their prejudices. Lieutenant Wells's bravery speaks for itself, and his actions have already inspired many." The chamber fell silent, the weight of her words sinking in. After a long pause, President Raneth spoke. The Council will deliberate further. Until then, the Union will proceed under observation. The galaxy is watching. As Marcus and Syra left the chamber, the whispers followed them. Marcus glanced at her, his expression a mix of curiosity and respect. You handled that well. She gave him a faint smile. I've spent years being underestimated, Lieutenant. It's a skill I've mastered. For the first time, Marcus saw not the ugly queen of rumor, but a woman of resilience and strength. And though he didn't yet understand what lay ahead, he felt the stirrings of respect for the unlikely partner fate had placed at his side. The tension between Marcus and Syra was palpable as they navigated the intricacies of their unexpected partnership. The Tlaxian palace, grand and alien in its bioluminescent splendor, became their shared stage as they worked to fulfill King Varen's final wish. Marcus sought to understand Syra, but she remained an enigma. Rumors of her harsh demeanor and ugliness had painted a cruel caricature, but as Marcus spent more time with her, he began to see a complex and resilient woman beneath the surface. One afternoon, Marcus found Syra in the palace gardens, an ethereal space filled with glowing flora and shimmering pools. She sat by a crystalline fountain, her fingers trailing through the cool water. "Do you come here often?" Marcus asked, breaking the silence as he approached. Syra glanced up, her expression unreadable. "It's one of the few places in the palace where I can think clearly." Marcus hesitated, then sat on the edge of the fountain. "I get that. It's been a lot to process." Syra tilted her head, studying him. "Do you regret agreeing to my husband's request?" He considered her question carefully. "I'd be lying if I said I didn't have doubts, but I made a promise, and I keep my promises." Her lips curved into a faint smile, the first he had seen. "That's rare, especially among those who sought my husband's favor." "Speaking of Varen," Marcus said cautiously, "what was your life like with him?" Syra's gaze dropped to the water. "It was complicated. He valued me as an advisor, but to the court I was nothing more than a symbol of his control. My appearance made me a target for ridicule, but I learned to use their disdain against them. It made me invisible when I needed to be." Marcus frowned, the weight of her words sinking in. "You don't deserve that." She met his eyes, her voice steady. "Deserve has little to do with reality, Lieutenant." For the first time, Marcus saw the depth of her strength and intelligence. The so-called ugly queen was a strategist, a survivor, and a woman who had endured far more than most would ever know. The Galactic Council's observation period began, and with it came a surge of scrutiny. Tlaxians and humans alike debated the Union, with factions on both sides expressing doubt or outright hostility. Marcus and Syra found themselves thrust into the spotlight, their every move analyzed. One evening, they attended a formal banquet in the palace, hosted to demonstrate unity between humans and Tlaxians. The grand hall shimmered with the glow of crystalline chandeliers, the air filled with the hum of alien music. Dignitaries from both worlds filled the room, their conversations tinged with skepticism. As Marcus and Syra entered, the room fell silent. The attention was unnerving, but Marcus maintained his composure. Syra, ever poised, leaned toward him and whispered, "Smile. They're watching for cracks." He smirked, her sharp wit easing his nerves. Let them watch. The evening unfolded with a mix of tension and civility. Marcus mingled with Tlaxian nobles, using his natural charm to disarm their skepticism. Syra, meanwhile, navigated the human representatives with grace, her intelligence shining through. But not everyone was pleased. General Zorik, a staunch loyalist to Varen's regime, voiced his disdain openly. "This union is an affront to Tlaxian tradition," he said, his voice carrying across the hall. "A human cannot understand our ways, let alone guide our people." Marcus stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "I don't claim to understand everything about Tlax, but I'm here to learn and to stand by Queen Syra. Together, we can create something better for both our peoples." The room murmured with mixed reactions, but Syra's response silenced them. "General Zorik, your loyalty to my late husband is noted, but clinging to the past will not secure our future. Lieutenant Wells has shown more honor and courage than many in this court. Perhaps it's time we learn from his example." Zorik bristled but said nothing further. The room settled, and for the first time, Marcus and Syra felt a glimmer of progress in their uphill battle. Later that night, as they walked back to their chambers, Marcus turned to Syra. "You didn't have to defend me like that." She glanced at him, her expression softening. "It wasn't just for you. It was for us. If this union is to work, we must stand as one." Marcus nodded, a newfound respect for her growing. "Then let's stand together." The words hung between them, a promise that marked the beginning of a partnership forged in resilience and mutual determination. Together they would face the challenges ahead, not as individuals forced into an alliance, but as a team united by a shared goal. Despite the growing respect Marcus and Syra earned among some factions, dissent festered within the Tlaxian court. General Zorik, humiliated by his public defeat at the banquet, began rallying discontented nobles who longed for the old days under King Varen's rule. To them, the union between a human soldier and their queen was a betrayal of their traditions and power. Marcus, now a constant presence in the palace, noticed the shifts in mood. Whispers grew louder in the halls, and the once dutiful guards seemed wary. His instincts as a soldier kicked in, and he began quietly gathering intelligence. One evening, he shared his concerns with Syra as they walked in the gardens under the glow of the bioluminescent trees. "Zorik's not letting this go," he said, his tone measured. "He's building support, likely planning something." Syra sighed, her shoulders heavy with the weight of leadership. It was inevitable. Zorik sees this union as a threat to his power. He's always been a master manipulator. "What's our next move?" Marcus asked, his voice steady but laced with urgency. "We prepare," Syra replied. "If Zorik wants to fight, we'll ensure he faces not just us, but a united court." To counter Zorik's growing influence, Syra and Marcus embarked on a campaign to solidify their alliance with loyal nobles and influential citizens. Syra's speeches, eloquent and heartfelt, highlighted the need for unity and progress, while Marcus used his background as a soldier to connect with the palace guards and military leaders. Their efforts began to pay off. Nobles who had initially dismissed Syra started to see her strength, and Marcus's straightforward honesty won over many who had been skeptical of a human in their ranks. Slowly but surely, they built a coalition that could withstand Zorik's schemes. But the tension remained, simmering beneath the surface, as both sides prepared for the inevitable confrontation. The storm finally broke on a night of celebration. The palace was hosting a gala to mark the signing of a new treaty between the Galactic Council and Tlax, a symbolic step toward peace and cooperation. The grand hall was alive with light and sound, the air filled with the hum of conversation and music. Marcus and Syra stood side by side, greeting dignitaries and projecting an image of unity. But Marcus's trained eyes caught the subtle signs of unease among the guards stationed at the hall's entrances. Something was off. His instincts were confirmed when the lights flickered, and a deafening explosion rocked the palace. The hall erupted into chaos as Zorik's forces stormed in, their weapons aimed at Marcus and Syra. "Get down!" Marcus shouted, pulling Syra behind a column as blaster fire tore through the room. The guests scrambled for cover, and loyal guards moved to protect the queen. Zorik's voice rang out above the chaos. "This is the end of your charade, Syra. Tlax belongs to its own people, not a weak queen and her human pet." Marcus's jaw tightened as he exchanged a glance with Syra. "Stay here," he ordered. "I'll handle this." "No," she said firmly, grabbing his arm. "We handle this together." The fight was brutal. Marcus led the charge, his military precision turning the tide against Zorik's forces. Syra, armed with a ceremonial blade, fought beside him with a ferocity that surprised even her loyalists. Her presence on the battlefield inspired her people, showing them that she was not the weak figure Zorik had painted her to be. As the battle raged, Marcus confronted Zorik directly in the throne room. The general, towering and armored, sneered as he raised his weapon. "You should have stayed out of this, human. This is not your fight." Marcus dodged Zorik's first strike, his movements calculated and efficient. "You're wrong," he replied, his voice steady. "This is my fight because I promised I'd stand with her." Their clash was intense, but Marcus's experience and determination gave him the edge. With a decisive move, he disarmed Zorik and forced him to his knees. Syra entered the throne room, her blade still in hand. She stood before the defeated general, her voice calm but filled with authority. "Your time is over, Zorik." Tlax will no longer be ruled by fear and division. Zorik glared at her but said nothing as loyal guards restrained him. The coup had been quashed, but the cost was high. The palace was damaged, and the scars of the battle were etched into the faces of everyone who had fought. Marcus and Syra stood together in the aftermath, their bond strengthened by the trials they had endured. "You were incredible out there," Marcus said, his voice filled with admiration. "So were you," Syra replied, a rare smile breaking through her stoic demeanor. "I couldn't have done this without you." They both knew the fight for Tlax's future was far from over, but for the first time they saw a glimmer of hope. Together, they had proven that even the most unlikely partnership could withstand the storm and pave the way for a new beginning. The days following the failed coup were fraught with tension and uncertainty. The palace, though still standing, bore the scars of the attack. Its once pristine halls now echoed with the sounds of repairs and guarded whispers. The coup had shaken the confidence of the Tlaxian people, and Marcus and Syra faced the monumental task of rebuilding trust, not just in their leadership, but in the future of their world. Marcus spent his days working alongside the palace guards and military leaders, ensuring their defenses were fortified against further rebellion. His human perspective brought a fresh approach to strategy, earning him reluctant respect from those who had initially dismissed him. Lieutenant Wells, Commander Valak, a seasoned Tlaxian officer, said one afternoon during a training exercise, "Your tactics are unconventional, but they are effective." Marcus smirked. "I'll take that as a compliment." Meanwhile, Syra took to the streets, visiting markets, schools, and hospitals to connect with her people directly. Her presence was initially met with apprehension, but her genuine concern and hands-on approach began to shift perceptions. During a visit to a damaged district, an elderly Tlaxian woman approached her, bowing slightly. "Queen Syra," she said, her voice trembling, "I doubted you, but you came here. You care for us." Syra placed a hand on the woman's shoulder, her voice soft but firm. "I always have, and I always will." One evening, Marcus and Syra met in the gardens, their shared refuge amidst the chaos. The glow of the bioluminescent flora cast a soft light on their faces as they discussed the day's progress. "The people are starting to believe in you," Marcus said, his tone encouraging. "In us," Syra corrected, her gaze steady. "I couldn't do this without you." Marcus hesitated, then nodded. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" Syra's lips quirked into a faint smile. "And we still have further to go. But for the first time, I feel hope." News of the coup and its aftermath had reached the Galactic Council, prompting them to summon Marcus and Syra to explain their actions and present their vision for Tlax's future. The council chamber, a vast circular hall filled with representatives from countless species, hummed with anticipation as the pair entered. All eyes were on them as they stood before the council. Marcus, clad in his Earth Federation uniform, exuded confidence, while Syra's regal bearing commanded respect despite the whispers of her controversial reputation. Council President Raneth, a towering figure with shimmering silver skin, addressed them. "Queen Syra, Lieutenant Wells, you stand before us at a pivotal moment. The council is eager to hear how you plan to restore stability and unity to Tlax." Syra stepped forward, her voice steady and clear. "Tlax has suffered under division and fear for too long. My late husband's rule, though powerful, sowed mistrust and resentment. Lieutenant Wells and I aim to change that. Together, we will build a future founded on cooperation and respect, not only within our world, but with the galaxy at large." Marcus added, "The failed coup showed us the fractures that still exist, but it also showed us the strength of those who believe in a better future. We've already begun rebuilding trust, and with the Council's support, we can ensure Tlax becomes a beacon of unity." The council chamber buzzed with murmurs, some skeptical, others impressed. Finally, President Raneth raised a hand for silence. "Your words are bold, but actions speak louder. What assurances can you give that this vision will succeed?" Syra glanced at Marcus, who nodded subtly. "By inviting transparency," she said. "We propose opening Tlax to greater cooperation with the Galactic Council, allowing for shared oversight and resources as we rebuild." The bold suggestion sparked a flurry of discussion among the council members. After a tense deliberation, President Raneth spoke again. "Your proposal is unconventional, but it demonstrates your commitment to change. The Council will support your efforts, provided progress is made." As the session concluded, Marcus and Syra left the chamber to a mix of approval and skepticism. Outside, Marcus exhaled deeply. "That was intense." Syra turned to him, her expression softening. "You handled it well. Together, we've proven we're more than just a symbol." Marcus smiled. "We're a team." As they walked back to their transport, the weight of their responsibilities felt lighter, tempered by the strength they had found in each other. The journey ahead was still fraught with challenges, but for the first time, they faced it not as individuals burdened by expectation, but as partners united by purpose and trust. With the Galactic Council's conditional support secured, Marcus and Syra returned to Tlax to oversee the next phase of their plan to unify the fractured planet. Their reforms gained momentum, but their enemies had not been silenced. A shadowy faction of Zorik's former loyalists remained active, spreading disinformation and preparing for one final attempt to topple Syra's rule. The warning came during a public address. Marcus and Syra were standing on a grand platform overlooking a crowd of Tlaxians in the capital city. Syra's words, filled with hope and determination, were met with cheers of approval. But as she spoke, Marcus's instincts detected something amiss. His sharp eyes scanned the crowd, catching subtle movements among a group of attendees near the edge of the plaza. "Get down!" Marcus shouted, pulling Syra to the ground just as a projectile weapon fired from the crowd. Chaos erupted. Guards surged forward, forming a protective barrier around the queen and her consort as the crowd scattered. Marcus rose to his feet, his weapon drawn, and immediately took charge. "Secure the area. Find the shooter." Syra, shaken but unhurt, refused to retreat. "No," she said firmly as her guards tried to usher her away. "My people need to see that I will not be silenced by fear." Marcus hesitated, then nodded. "Stay close to me." The would-be assassin was apprehended within minutes, but the attack left a palpable tension in the air. That evening, Marcus and Syra sat in the palace war room, reviewing intelligence reports. "It was a coordinated effort," Marcus said, his tone grim. "There's a network behind this." Syra's expression was resolute. "Then we root them out, together." The next few days were a whirlwind of covert operations. Marcus led the efforts to dismantle the network, working closely with Syra and her most loyal allies. Their combined strategies, Marcus's military expertise and Syra's intimate knowledge of her people's politics, proved unstoppable. One by one, the faction's leaders were captured, their resources seized, and their influence extinguished. As the final cell was dismantled, Marcus and Syra stood on the balcony of the palace, overlooking a city that was beginning to heal. The danger was not entirely gone, but the worst had passed. "You were incredible out there," Marcus said, turning to her. "So were you," Syra replied, her voice warm. "We couldn't have done it without each other." Months after the attempted assassination, Tlax stood on the cusp of a new era. The reforms Marcus and Syra had implemented were bearing fruit. Trade routes reopened, education initiatives flourished, and interspecies diplomacy brought fresh opportunities to the planet. The Galactic Council, impressed by their progress, extended its full support to Tlax, signaling a turning point for the once feared planet. Council President Raneth personally visited the capital to commend their efforts. "You have proven that unity is not just an ideal, but a reality," he said during a formal ceremony. For Marcus and Syra, the recognition was a validation of their hard work, but their greatest reward was seeing the transformation in their people. Syra, once dismissed as an ugly queen, was now celebrated as a wise and compassionate leader. Marcus, the outsider, had become a respected figure, admired for his bravery and dedication. That evening, as the twin moons of Tlax rose above the palace, Marcus and Syra shared a quiet moment in the gardens. The bioluminescent plants glowed softly, their light reflecting in the tranquil pools around them. "We've come a long way," Marcus said, breaking the silence. Syra nodded, her expression thoughtful. "And we still have further to go, but for the first time, I feel like we're not walking alone." He smiled, reaching for her hand. "We're not." As they stood together, their hands intertwined, they looked out over the city that had become a symbol of resilience and hope. Their journey, born of an unexpected promise and forged through trials, had united not only their hearts but also their people. The story of the human soldier and the alien queen, once seen as an improbable union, had become a legend, a testament to the power of trust, courage, and the unyielding belief that even the most divided worlds could find common ground. Together, Marcus and Syrah faced the future, ready to lead their people into a brighter, united tomorrow.